What's up, everyone? I'm the cartoon physicist, and this is Noughtie, taking back the good, the bad, and the forgotten of the new millennium. Well, no point in beating around the bush. Bounty Hamster! It's a show that exists.
Actually, I could be around the bush a little. Bounty Hamster is one of those shows I remembered watching on ABC Kids when I was a kid. So this is another nostalgia trip. But I've actually been looking forward to reviewing this one. I mean, it's like talking to people about Replicator. You can't resist the urge to spread awareness of its weirdness. I remembered this show the most because of its weirdness. Except for its name. The fond memories of me watching the show suddenly popped into my head a while back, but I couldn't remember the name, so I searched high and low on the internet for it. Apparently, just putting in Blue Hamster in the search engine does the trick.
Yes, I did say Blue Hamster. That's just the start of the weirdness to come, viewers. This is Bounty Hamster. Just rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? First thing you should know about the show, it's British.
Yeah, I assume it must be a surprise to you that this is British. Not for me, though. If there's one thing Britain does right, it's absurdist humor. And this show has plenty of it, made even stranger in space. Reminds me of shows like Danger Mouse, both versions, The Amazing World of Gumball, and Red Dwarf.
So essentially, it is a Star Wars directed by Monty Python, including zombie Graham Chapman.
But we'll get to talk a lot about the show's unique style later. Trust me, there's a lot to talk about. Anyway, Bounty Hamster was created by David Max Friedman and Alan Gilbey. Also both the creators of It's the Mr. Hell Show and Foxbusters. Yes, both those shows exist. And yes, I will review both someday. The show lasted one season with 26 episodes, each approximately 11 minutes long. It first aired on ITV, or ITV1 at the time, though like I said, it also aired on ABC Kids over here, from January to May of 2003. Yeah, just 1 year. Less than a year, in fact. Not surprising considering how badly the show was treated by the network. But we'll get to that in due time. The plot goeth thusly.
Meanwhile, on the other side of the universe...
My name's Cassie, and I'm lost. Lost after pirates attacked my father's ship. Dad!
I'll come back for you!
But he didn't. So I went looking. And to help me, I hired the roughest, toughest bounty hunter in the galaxy. And that's when my troubles really began.
With the origin story already explained in the opening, an origin story episode was never made. The series basically begins in medias res, allowing occasional offhand remarks about our two main characters' misadventures. Plus, we're not at the very beginning of their relationship. We're at a less awkward stage of the evolution of their relationship. Just easier to absorb, really. You'll see characters pop up here and there, but they're not really the supporting cast. The show focuses its attention entirely on these two. First off is our titular character, voiced by Alan Marriott, known for playing Victor Volt on The Secret Show. But we just know the hamster as Marion.
Marion?
Your real name is Marion.
But that's a girl's name!
Okay, I'm gonna whack you for that after I saved you. The name's Marion.
But that's a girl's name.
It's a running gag.
Most of the humor comes from Marion's incompetence. He's not dumb per se, and he can be a competent bounty hunter at times, particularly when he's angry. He just unintentionally finds ways to screw things up. Cassie only hired Marion because he was the cheapest bounty hunter she could afford. Even his growls aren't impressive. Until they're on those. He acts all tough, but there have been times when he was too cowardly too quickly. Things get really interesting when someone calls him cute. You might as well have thrown a grenade into a china shop. Marion does have a good laugh now and then, though, as seen when he becomes king of a planet of prankster monkeys. Most of the time, Marion is materialistic and thinks about money a lot, and so does whatever he can to get some. I'm kinda surprised he's the cheapest bounty hunter in the galaxy, even though money takes up most of his mind. Wouldn't his services be a lot more costly if money was that desirable to him? Nevertheless, Marion does make bad decisions for the sake of money, like stealing a sarcophagus from space mummies. Also, apparently space mummies exist. So yeah, the evils of ancient Egypt have reached space.
Miss, just last week you stole 4 platinum and octagon barrels of premium old gem spirit from Oa's Warriors Bar. Not to mention that ancient Egypt gag you stole from Munkara a second ago. Other than what was stolen, how was that any different from him stealing?
'Cause it's him doing the stealing.
Sometimes your logic wouldn't even make sense on Hitler.
Even though it doesn't seem like it, Marion really does care about Cassie. Absolutely fine with being up a few thugs to protect her, which he might be able to do since he's not really an ordinary hamster. Not only is he a vegetarian hamster raised by talking wolves, but he also has a hammer space in his cheeks within his mouth, though most of the time he pulls out the wrong things. Actually, it was revealed that the inside of his cheeks are linked to the Lost World, another dimension where everything lost ends up, found on the other side of a black hole. So he was pulling out anything he wants from that world the whole time.
I'll stick with the hammer space behind my back, thank you very much. Though, that's not how mine works. I can only pull out what I own. That's kind of unfair, isn't it?
Cassiopeia, or just Cassie, played by Juliette Cohen, is of course the opposite of Marion. Not willing to break as many rules and definitely has more compassion and a conscience. She's more willing to help others than Marion, who looks out for his own safety most of the time. In fact, according to the Almighty Chin, Cassie's pure of heart. Yes, there's a being known as the Almighty Chin. You get used to the unexpected when watching this. Cassie is smart and rational, but a bit too naive and trusting. Not really helpful in a universe of alien bounty hunters and killers. Though Marion has rubbed off on her, she does have her action hero moments. She became more willing to do risky stuff, sometimes even for money once they were broke, and fantasized doing those things. She can be tough, though she gets a touch offended when she's not considered feminine. Yep, she's a well-rounded 17-year-old girl.
Miss, Cassiopeia is 13 years old.
Cassie's 13?
Really? With her voice and her 90s, 2000s baggy pants teenager look, I honestly thought she was 16 or 17 ever since I was a kid. I mean, Marion being much shorter made her look older.
Then again, who am I to judge? Most people think I'm 14 or so because they think all 19-year-olds look like this.
It doesn't help that lots of the aliens keep seeing her as someone they could... Well, look at this.
I'm changing this comic book for the girl.
Oh, get away from me!
I mean, yes, it's implied, sort of. I don't think the writers mean to slightly sexually objectify her. Either they were trying to write her as someone the aliens would trade in general, like a cook or servant or even food, but gave the wrong impression. Or they were trying to show how sleazy most aliens are in this world, with the writers actually being against this sort of behavior towards women or even anyone really. In other words, I don't think the writers see her that way, especially a 13-year-old girl. I'm not saying portraying a 17-year-old girl that way is any better, but still accidental portrayal of a girl who used to be a preteen not long ago attracts an aura of creepiness. Even if this was accidental, I think the writers should have been a lot more careful. Anyone who has learnt about sex and stuff would automatically see scenes like this as sexual, for lack of a better word. Nothing wrong with sexuality in cartoons, especially concerning love. But let's face it, implied pedophilia should never, ever be included in a silly cartoon. Most of the fan art already has that covered with their portrayals of a 13-year-old girl.
Do I even need to say it? Alright, I'll say it. Ew.
If you're more into character development than absurd weirdness, then I suggest paying attention to the relationship between Marion and Cassie. It's one of the best developments of a platonic relationship that doesn't turn into a romantic relationship that I had ever seen. Okay, not the best, but definitely a best, to the point where it's impossible to picture them apart. At first, their relationship involves a lot of bickering and clashing, mainly due to Marion messing things up and not being an effective bounty hunter. Then Marion and Cassie interact with each other a bit more professionally, more in tune with each other when things get serious. You know, kind of like how the Dwarfers went from bickering roommates to an experienced starbug piloting team who rely on each other when they face danger in flight, before going back to being bickering roommates in the next scene. Then it gets to the point when they can joke about each other without arguing. And finally, thanks to the heartwarming 14th episode, when it hits them how much they miss their respective parents, they gain a mutual understanding and empathy, which additionally helped Marion understand why Cassie wants to find her father.
Due to the show's length and general tone, it follows a particular formula.
The two usually end up in typical from bad to worse situations that involves a lot of running away from stuff. And slapstick. Yeah, slapstick happens, but at least it also happens to Cassie, so consider this show an example of equal opportunity comedy. They do it all to try to get some info on where Cassie's dad is, or just generally try to find him. They never do because it's a comedy. Happily ever after endings don't make people laugh.
He went that away? He went that away? What kind of information is that?
Well, it rules out this away and that away.
They thought they found him once, but turns out it was just a hallucination induced by a lonely, all-powerful fish cloud. Though there were times when they just tried to survive by finding different ways to earn money. Like I said, scummy society, so earning money is really hard and usually not done in typical ways. Makes sense, considering the size of their money. Weird universe, just go with it. The show doesn't really have life lessons, but I think that's okay in this show. The show is purely comedic, unlike some shows that claim to have a message and just half-ass it at the end. At least we know from the beginning that's not the show's intention. The episodes are more like long episodic skits rather than full episodes. This does work since each episode is 11 minutes long, though we have seen shows nowadays in which character and plot development has occurred more thoroughly with the same amount of time or even less time. There aren't really any season-long story arcs to speak of due to the show's length, although at some point they were stranded on Gulf Gather 13 for 4 episodes.
Golgotha 13, the scuzziest, sleaziest pit of a planet this side of the septic tank we call space. Home to all the dross and the dreck, the scum, and the sump swap of the galaxy.
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Pretty much, yeah. And then there was a time they were stranded on an asteroid for 1.5 episodes because of a scheme involving selling the melted asteroid as water on a desert planet without any. And then that time they hitched a ride on a luxury ship after an almost Marxist robot revolution for 3.5 episodes. So yeah, sometimes an episode ends with misfortune and the next just starts with a whole new adventure to continue the formula. And sometimes an episode continues on from where the previous episode left off, like old sci-fi serials. This show is also pretty good at twists. Like, it seems like they're doing something you expect in a kid's cartoon ending, and then BAM! The unexpected. For instance, little kid makes friends with Big Marion Gamera style. BAM! Little kid intentionally becomes a giant monster to have his revenge on his own home. Prankster monkeys overthrown by sensible monkeys. BAM! The sensible monkeys were pranksters all along. Marion and Cassie solve a robot murder and caught the culprit. BAM! They arrest everyone and have the ship to themselves.
No more banning. Hurts my mouth.
Now all that weirdness I've been mentioning, that is just the tip of the iceberg. I'm certainly not complaining. The look and the tone of the show and its world are why the show is so unique and enjoyable. It presumably takes place in the future since they think Mick Jagger was a historian. So maybe it takes place around the same time as Futurama.
It says here that this part of the hustle implores the gods to grant a favor, usually a trans.
Unlike most in the future shows that take place in space 24/7, this future does have enough, since it was mentioned once or twice. As for this universe's residents, every now and then we would see familiar bounty hunters reappear in different episodes. The idea of bounty hunters crisscrossing paths with many other rival bounty hunters shows how tight the seedy part of the show's society is. Like, you just know there's a story behind each bounty hunter and how they met each other. As you can see, all of them are aliens, and the aliens in this universe are just anthropomorphic animals with alien traits like different colors or extra limbs.
Now, normally I'm not a fan of animalistic aliens. I mean, what are the chances of there being aliens looking a lot like Earth animals?
I prefer aliens and just any sort of creature in speculative fiction to look like they're their own species. But when it comes to comedies, I usually let it slide. It's only a way to create more comedic opportunities. Besides, there wouldn't be a blue bounty hamster if the show didn't follow this logic. Speaking of logic, this show runs on its own rules of logic. For instance, just writing 11 on the ship's hyperdrive turbo dial thingy actually makes it go up to 11. Another contribution to the show's weird charm is their fourth wall breaking. Seriously though, by now the wall has probably been downright smashed.
But it was alright in the end. We gave those roots the slip and got away.
There he is, in front of the hole that gets smaller.
And the designs of every non-living thing in this universe is pretty damn impressive. Like this ship.
I love the design of Marion's ship. It's just made up of 2 major parts, the booster rocket and the cockpit, making them capable of separating and reconnecting. It works with the punk aesthetic of the booster rocket. Reminds me of Tank Girl. No. I mean the comic. Get that mess out of my face. Yeah, that's more like it. That definitely suits the comic more than the movie. Then again, nothing suits the movie.
Too bad it doesn't have a toilet. I want that ship.
You already have a spaceship.
Yeah, a tiny little chunk of rust infested with cigarettes. Besides, I forgot I didn't even really need it after I built it anyway.
If you now know you could just use your portable hold, why do you want that spaceship?
Because it has a big-ass booster rocket!
It's like unraveling a tangled Gordian knot.
As you can see, the ship is CG. Most of the ships and such are in the show. It's actually nicely done. It suits the show's art style, yet able to show the vastness of different ships and such, like the CG in Futurama. Very impressive for its time. They even made the space whales CG. Also, this show has space whales, and they can talk.
I'm the happiest whale in the world!
This show has weird stuff. But at least it's great at world building.
There have been a few times when the show included other styles of animation and video production, like when they used a live-action face for a talking planet. That was actually a reference to A Trip to the Moon, so the writers are both nerdy and classy.
And then there are the references. Oh my god, the references!
The writers are such big fanboys. Here's a fun little game to play while watching the show. Take a shot every time you spot/hear a reference. If you get really drunk, it just shows you know your pop culture. And trust me, I do mean really drunk.
They reference... Hang on. Okay, here we go. They reference...
Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, Moby Dick, Scooby-Doo, Alice in Wonderland, The Matrix, Alien, The Little Mermaid, Fantastic Voyage. In fact, they outright say it.
What a fantastic voyage!
Wizards of Oz, Buster Keaton, King Kong, Of Mice and Men.
Tell me about the hamsters, Cassie.
The Simpsons, Aliens.
Get away from him, you mongrel!
Indiana Jones, The Little Shop of Horrors.
C4, feed me now!
The Dollars Trilogy. This guy even squints and talks like Clint Eastwood. Looney Tunes.
I will pet him, I love him.
And crush me, and kill me.
Friend, allow me to share with you something that has taken me 30 painful years to discover. Try thinking things through more and order equipment from a different catalog.
Thanks, pal. I'll try it. I tell you, my room is full of bugs.
Impossible! There have never been bugs in this hotel.
Yeah, what's up, Doc?
Expect a lot of wordplay as well. Judge Dredd as multiple police ducks, Marx Brothers, Psycho, Doctor Who. I'm kind of surprised this show waited until the 19th episode to reference it. Fancy Island, even Faulty Towers. Hell, this show even had the balls to reference Some Like It Hot.
Listen, pal, there's something I gotta tell you.
I just called Mama. She wants you to have a wedding dress.
I called Mama. She was so happy she cried. She wants you to have her wedding gown. It's white lace.
Look, I can't get married in your mother's dress.
That's good. I can't get married in your mother's dress.
In fact, we can't get married at all.
We can?
That's good. I'm gonna level with you. We can't get married at all. Why not?
No, I have a secret. I'm not a natural blonde.
I knew that.
Well, in the first place, I'm not a natural blonde. Doesn't matter.
And I can never have children.
We can adopt.
I can never have children. We can adopt some.
Look, you don't understand.
I'm a boy.
Well, nobody's perfect.
But you don't understand, Osgood. I'm a man. Well, nobody's perfect.
Don't you just love producer's film references?
Hestia, save that clip. Not to mention, the main characters' own names are references. Marion is a shout-out to John Wayne, whose original name was Marion Mitchell Morrison, who is well known for playing Rooster Cogburn, who was the inspiration for Marion. And Cassie's last name is Harrison, which is a shout out to Harrison Ford, who of course played a character who would definitely fit in this world. You know who I'm talking about.
Mac Tannen. Alright, of course I was talking about Han Solo. If there's one franchise this show references so thoroughly, it's Star Wars. You can tell it's a major influence with its setting as well as references. As a matter of fact, one Star Wars reference is a running gag. A silver version of C-3PO wearing blue underpants would pop up to announce the probability of their plans failing or them dying. Marion always responds by hurting him and getting rid of him in his own unique way.
The chances of surviving a head-on collision are less than 10 billion to 1.
Who is that guy?
Sometimes they use references as a major part of an episode, like a setting. In the 8th episode, there's a hotel that mimics a room in 2001 Space Odyssey called Kubrick's, which can be entered via Monolith/Stargate. The same episode threw in a bonus Shining reference just in case. Sometimes episodes are just homages and parodies to various things at once. One episode, the Gamma-ish one, was a parody of Gulliver's Travels, Pokemon, and Kaiju movies all at once. Yep, you can bet a show with an offbeat sense of humor, a broad appeal to kids and adults, and a brilliant mixture of both originality and a very postmodern use of influences would have lasted a long time.
Oh, there's a big surprise! That's an incredible... I think I'm gonna have a heart attack and die from that surprise!
I'm not joking. I'm not that surprised it was cancelled. Not just because most of the good shows I reviewed have been cancelled prematurely too, but because the show was mistreated since day one. ITV left it on the shelf months after the show was made. The last 6 episodes were unaired. The shown episodes were never rerun in their own country of origin. The only home release was one DVD here in Australia with 4 episodes. And of course, the budget cuts. Clearly the cause of the state of the last episode.
Due to the budget cuts at ITV, the animators in New Zealand couldn't make the episode the people behind the show had intended to make, about Marion's old friend tracking him and Cassie down. Instead, they made The Trial. The majority, oh no, not the majority, basically all of the 26th episode known as The Trial is just stock footage from the past 25 episodes with redubbed lines, as well as a regular clip show with a plot really similar to the Duckman episode clip job.
If your life was a TV series, then this would have been one of those shows full of clips and highlights.
Which is a cheesy ploy foisted upon the viewing public to save money by doing less original production.
Charles, Marple, that would be despicable. What kind of cynical anything for a buck sleazoids would have me kidnapped and tortured for the sake of a cheap, tired, creatively bankrupt clip show?
They sort of knew in a way they were going to be cancelled soon. The show just ends with Cassie replacing Marion as the bounty hunter. Such a shame, really. It did seem like over time they were building up to something big for season 2 by including a few story arcs in the first season. But nope, cancelled. Actually, they did plan something for season 2, something that would avoid the previous status quo. Marion and Cassie were going to find out that her dad has amnesia, turned evil, and has joined a space pirate crew. As for the episode itself, I honestly think the episode before the last one was a better final episode. We see Cassie believing in a delusion induced by a holochamber in which she is at school and had never had adventures in space. But once she realizes the truth, she's proud of herself and proud to be a part of this whole not normal space mess.
I want space adventures. Blam! I want stupid jokes. That! I want a mad hamster for a friend. Blam! Who wouldn't? And I don't want any of this!
Bounty Hamster. Despite all its setbacks, it deserves a B.
The animation is a bit wobbly in the beginning, but that's expected. The lip syncing's off occasionally. Not so much, only once or twice at most, but you'll notice it. It doesn't matter anyway. Overall, the show is great, completely underrated. Regardless of its accidental hiccups and network obstacles, it managed to stay on task with what everyone wanted to do with it for the majority of the show. So insane and reference-packed of misadventures of a girl and a blue alien hamster in an absurd galaxy you want and don't want to live in. I think that pretty much speaks for itself. Though, since I kinda have to go on, I would have to say that if the show were a person, it would be that weird yet creative and over-enthusiastic geeky friend you have who makes as many references and puns as possible. You don't know why he or she of all people is your friend, but you find him endearing anyway. Trust me, we all have that friend. And that friend is what the reviewer community consists entirely of.
Keep an eye out for the next episode. It's a particularly special one. It's my review show's 1 year anniversary. Now let's see what I'm reviewing for the occasion.
Let's try it.